Lieutenant Amanda Ross couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The deep space monitoring station aboard the UES Nighthawk had been quiet for months, showing nothing but the usual background noise from distant stars. But today was different. The signal patterns on her screen didn't match anything in their database. She took another sip of her coffee, now cold after sitting forgotten for the past hour. The Kuiper Belt stretched endlessly before her through the station's observation window, its icy bodies barely visible against the backdrop of space. After 5 years of monitoring this sector, she had learned to trust her instincts. "Daniel, can you come take a look at this?" She called out to her communications specialist, Daniel Carter, who was running diagnostics at a nearby terminal. Daniel pushed away from his station, his chair gliding smoothly across the low-gravity environment. He was young for his position, barely 30, but his skills with signal analysis were unmatched in the United Earth Defense Force. "What have you got, Lieutenant?" he asked, squinting at her screen. The pattern pulsed in regular intervals, but with subtle variations that seemed almost deliberate. "I'm not sure," Amanda replied, pulling up comparison charts. "It's not asteroid interference, not solar wind, and definitely not commercial traffic. The pattern is too complex." Daniel's fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, running the signal through various filters. His usual casual demeanor faded as the results came back. "This is artificial, Lieutenant. No doubt about it." Amanda felt her heart rate quicken. In the year 2184, humanity had spread throughout the solar system, establishing colonies on Mars, mining operations in the asteroid belt, and research stations as far as Saturn's moons. But in all that time, they had never encountered definitive proof of alien intelligence. Until now. "How far?" she asked, already knowing the answer wouldn't be good. Daniel's face grew serious as he triangulated the signal's origin, based on the signal strength and decay. "It's coming from just beyond the Kuiper Belt. And Lieutenant, it's moving toward us." Amanda initiated the alert protocol with a series of quick commands. Within seconds, the ship's AI had verified their findings and automatically forwarded the data to Luna Base Alpha, Earth's primary defense headquarters. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. The Nighthawk's crew of 25 split into shifts, constantly monitoring the signal as it grew stronger. Amanda and Daniel worked without breaks, fueled by synthetic caffeine and the excitement of first contact. "Got something new," Daniel called out during the early hours of their second shift. The signals changed its pattern. Hold on." He paused, double-checking his readings. "It's accelerating." Amanda leaned over his shoulder, watching as new data poured in. The original signal had indeed changed, becoming more complex and carrying what appeared to be data packets. "Can you decode any of it?" "Working on it," Daniel replied, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic screens. "The structure suggests it's some kind of communication, but the encoding is unlike anything in our databases." The ship's commander, John Harris, joined them at the monitoring station. His weathered face showed concern as he reviewed their findings. "How long until whatever's sending this reaches Pluto's orbit?" Amanda ran the calculations, then ran them again, hoping she was wrong. "At current acceleration, 3 months, sir. Maybe less if they continue to speed up." Commander Harris nodded grimly. "Send everything we have to Luna Base. Market priority 1. He turned to address the entire bridge crew. "People, I think we just made first contact. Let's make sure we're ready for whatever comes next." As Amanda compiled their data, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The signal wasn't just getting stronger, it was multiplying. What they initially thought was a single source was actually several, possibly dozens, all moving in perfect formation. "Sir," she called out to Commander Harris, "I think we need to initiate Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something they had trained for, but never expected to use. It was the highest level of alert for potential hostile contact, requiring immediate mobilization of Earth's defense forces. The commander studied the new data for a long moment before nodding. Do it. Daniel's hands shook slightly as he helped Amanda encode the Protocol 7 alert. They had both trained for this scenario, but the reality was far more terrifying than any simulation. As they worked, Amanda noticed patterns in the signal that seemed to repeat at regular intervals. Look at this, she said, highlighting a section of the data stream. These patterns, they're not random. They're organized, almost like they're scanning us. Daniel finished her thought. The signal strength spikes every time it passes over one of our major installations. Commander Harris's face hardened. They're mapping our defenses. He opened a direct channel to Luna Base Alpha. This is Commander Harris of the UES Nighthawk. We have confirmation of Protocol 7 conditions. I repeat, Protocol 7 is now in effect. The response was immediate. Orders began flowing in from Earth Defense Command. The Nighthawk was to maintain its position and continue monitoring while the rest of the fleet mobilized. All civilian ships were to be evacuated from the outer system, and colonial defenses were to be brought to full readiness. Amanda watched as the first evacuation ships began appearing on her radar, moving quickly toward the inner system. Years of drills and preparation were paying off. Humanity was responding to the threat with remarkable efficiency. Lieutenant Ross, Commander Harris called out, I want you and Carter to focus on decoding these signals. If they're studying us, we need to study them back. Everything else is secondary. For the next several days, Amanda and Daniel worked tirelessly, analyzing every aspect of the mysterious signals. They discovered patterns that suggested the visitors were using some form of quantum communication, far more advanced than anything humans had developed. Look at this, Daniel said one morning, pointing to a new analysis. The signals aren't just scanning us. They're carrying massive amounts of data. I think they're talking to each other. Amanda studied the patterns. Can you isolate any of the conversations? Working on it, Daniel replied. Our quantum processors are having trouble keeping up, but I'm starting to see structure in the noise. Whatever these beings are, they process information differently than we do. As they delved deeper into the signals, they began to understand more about their visitors. The precision of their movements, the complexity of their communications, all pointed to a civilization far more advanced than humanity. But there was something else in the data, something that worried Amanda more than their technological superiority. There's no variation, she realized, looking at weeks of accumulated data. No individual differences in communication patterns, no deviations from standard forms. It's like they're all thinking exactly the same way. Daniel nodded slowly. I noticed that too. Everything they do is perfect, precise, and completely rigid. No creativity, no adaptation, just perfect execution of predetermined patterns. Commander Harris listened to their findings with growing concern. What are you suggesting? Sir, Amanda said, choosing her words carefully. I think we're dealing with a species that values perfection and order above all else. And when they look at us, we must appear chaotic and primitive, the commander finished. How long until they reach Pluto's orbit? 2 months, 3 days, Daniel reported. They've maintained constant acceleration. Commander Harris straightened his uniform. Then we have 2 months to prepare for an encounter with beings who might see our very nature as an offense to their order. Keep monitoring, keep learning. Everything you discover might give us an edge. As Amanda turned back to her station, a new signal caught her attention. This one was different, stronger, more focused. As she analyzed it, her eyes widened. Sir, she called out, her voice tense. They're broadcasting something new. I think it's meant for us to receive. The bridge crew gathered around her station as she worked to decode the transmission. When she finally succeeded, the message was short and clear. It appeared simultaneously on all their screens in perfect English. We have observed your disorder. We offer correction. Prepare for optimization. Commander Harris's voice was steady as he gave the order that would echo throughout human space. Send word to Earth Defense Command. As of this moment, we are at war. Colonel Peter Wright stood at the massive window of Luna Base Alpha, watching Earth rotate slowly in the black sky above. His reflection showed a man in his mid-40s with steady eyes and graying temples, the weight of humanity's defense resting on his shoulders. "Show me the war machines," he said to Catherine Martinez, the lead engineer standing beside him. She was shorter than him by a foot, but her presence filled the room with an energy that commanded attention. Catherine nodded and pressed her hand against the window. The smart glass activated, transforming into a display showing the massive underground hangar beneath the lunar surface. Rows of gleaming mechanical suits stood in perfect formation, each one nearly 3 stories tall. "The Mark VII defenders are ready," Catherine said, pride evident in her voice. "We've upgraded them all with the new quantum cores since the Mars colony crisis. Each suit can operate for 6 months without refueling." Peter watched as maintenance crews moved between the war machines, performing final checks. These weren't simple mechanical suits. They were humanity's masterpiece, a perfect blend of human intuition and advanced technology. "How many pilots do we have ready?" he asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it again. 357 qualified pilots," Catherine replied. "Each one has logged over 1,000 hours in simulation." "But Colonel," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "these machines were designed to fight human threats. We have no idea how they'll perform against whatever's coming." Peter turned away from the window. "Show me the latest upgrades." Catherine led him to a nearby holographic display. With a few quick gestures, she brought up the technical specifications of the Mark VI. "We've added adaptive shielding based on the data from the Nighthawk. If these beings use quantum communications, they probably have quantum-based weapons too. The shields should be able to adapt to any energy signature they throw at us." As they reviewed the specifications, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. Peter's wrist computer lit up with an urgent message. The aliens had just passed Neptune's orbit, 2 weeks ahead of schedule. "They're moving faster than we predicted," he said, already sending orders to his command staff. "How long until the civilian evacuations are complete?" Catherine checked her own display. "Underground shelters are at 87% capacity. Mars colonies are fully secured. We need another week for the asteroid belt settlements." Peter nodded grimly. "They're not giving us a week. Start moving the war machines to forward positions. I want squadrons at every major colony and settlement in the system." The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Peter coordinated with defense forces across the solar system, while Catherine's engineers worked around the clock, making last-minute adjustments to the war machines. In the pilot-ready room, Peter addressed the assembled pilots. These men and women, chosen from millions of candidates, represented humanity's best hope for survival. "The enemy will reach Jupiter's orbit in less than 5 days," he told them. "They're technologically superior and absolutely certain of their victory, but they've never faced humans before." He paused, looking at each face in the room. "They don't understand what we're capable of when we're fighting for our survival." Among the pilots was Lisa Carter, a former asteroid miner who had scored the highest ever in the war machine compatibility tests. She raised her hand. "Sir, what do we know about their weapons?" "Not enough," Peter admitted. "But we know they think in straight lines. They'd follow patterns. Your greatest advantage will be your human unpredictability. Use it." As the pilots filed out to their assigned machines, Catherine approached Peter with new data from the observation posts near Saturn. "Colonel, you need to see this." The holographic display showed the alien fleet. What they saw made Peter's breath catch. The vessels weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were massive crystalline structures, each one shifting and changing shape as they watched. "Are they alive?" he wondered aloud. Catherine shook her head. "Not in any way we understand. The structures seem to exist partially in other dimensions. Our sensors can only capture fragments of their true form." Peter watched the strange formations move with perfect precision. "How do we fight something we can barely see?" That's the thing, Catherine said, excitement creeping into her voice. The war machine's quantum cores might let us interact with them on their level. The pilots won't just be fighting in normal space, they'll be fighting in quantum space too. Over the next few days, final preparations moved at a frantic pace. The war machines were positioned throughout the solar system, hiding behind moons and asteroids. Peter coordinated with Earth's governments, making sure everyone understood that this was humanity's last line of defense. In her engineering lab, Catherine made a breakthrough that could change everything. She called Peter down immediately. "Look at this," she said, showing him a simulation. "The aliens' crystalline structures. They're perfect, too perfect. There's no redundancy, no backup systems. If we can disrupt their quantum field even for a moment." Peter watched the simulation as a virtual war machine caused a cascade failure in one of the alien structures. "They're so advanced, they never considered they might need backup systems." "Exactly," Catherine said. "They've never failed before, so they never planned for failure. It's their weakness." Peter immediately called a meeting with the squadron leaders. As they gathered in the command center, he could see the mixture of fear and determination on their faces. These were humanity's finest, about to face an enemy that saw them as nothing more than a disorder to be corrected. "We have a plan," he told them, sharing Catherine's discovery. "The enemy is perfect, and that's their weakness. They don't adapt, they don't improvise, and they don't know how to handle chaos. So we're going to give them chaos." The next day, as the alien fleet approached Jupiter, Peter stood in the command center of Luna Base Alpha, watching tactical displays light up with hundreds of war machines moving into position. Catherine worked nearby, monitoring the quantum core readings. "All squadrons report ready," his communications officer announced. Peter took a deep breath. Humanity had spread throughout the solar system, built incredible technologies, and survived countless challenges. Now they faced their greatest test. Perfect, immortal beings who saw them as nothing but an imperfection to be corrected. "Send the response to their message," he ordered. Across every frequency, in every format they had decoded from the alien signals, humanity broadcast its answer. "We are humanity. We are chaos and creativity, disorder and determination. We will not be optimized. We will not be corrected. We are exactly what we are meant to be. And we are ready for you." As the message went out, Peter turned to Catherine. "Are the war machines ready?" She nodded, her eyes fixed on the quantum core readings. "All systems are green. The pilots are synchronized with their machines. Whatever these elder things are, they're about to learn that humanity doesn't surrender." Peter watched as the alien fleet came into range of their forward sensors. The crystalline structures were even more magnificent and terrifying up close, their impossible geometries shifting between dimensions. "All squadrons," he broadcast to the waiting pilots, "you have permission to engage at will. Show them what humanity can do." The war for humanity's existence was about to begin. Dr. Nathan Brooks stood in the observation dome of Titan Research Station, his breath catching in his throat. Through the reinforced windows, he could see them clearly now, the elder things, as people had started calling them. Their crystalline bodies shifted and changed, making his eyes hurt if he looked at them too long. "They're beautiful," he whispered, even as fear crept up his spine. As the station's lead xenobiologist, he had spent his life studying the possibility of alien life. But nothing had prepared him for this. The nearest elder thing was massive, easily the size of a small city. Its surface caught Titan's dim sunlight and broke it into impossible colors. Parts of its structure seemed to fade in and out of existence, as if it wasn't fully in our dimension. "Doctor," called out his assistant, Ryan Cooper, from the monitoring station. "You need to see these readings." Nathan pulled himself away from the window and moved to the bank of screens. The data scrolling across them showed energy patterns unlike anything he had ever seen. "How old are they?" he asked, studying the quantum signature analysis. Ryan adjusted some settings on the display. based on the decay patterns in their quantum fields. They're ancient, millions of years old, maybe billions. They've been traveling between galaxies all this time. A flash of light from outside caught their attention. One of the elder things had changed its shape, extending crystal-like appendages toward Titan's surface. The station's sensors recorded everything, feeding data to the banks of quantum computers. They're scanning us, Nathan realized, watching the energy patterns, learning about us. But there's something else. He pointed to a recurring pattern in the data. This sequence keeps appearing. It's like they're disgusted. Before Ryan could respond, every screen in the station suddenly went dark. Then, in perfect English, words appeared. Your existence is inefficient. Your chaos spreads disorder through the cosmos. We have watched your kind before. You will be corrected, or you will be removed. Nathan felt cold anger replace his fear. Send this data to Luna Base immediately, he ordered, and prepare a response. Miles away, in the hidden bunkers beneath Titan's icy surface, the war machines waited. Their pilots watched through advanced sensors as the elder things continued their scan of the moon. Each crystalline giant moved with perfect precision, their movements synchronized in ways that seemed to defy physics. Inside the research station, Nathan and his team worked frantically to understand their visitors. Every new piece of data revealed something both fascinating and terrifying about these ancient beings. Look at this, Ryan said, pointing to a new analysis. They're quantum fields. They're not individual entities. They're all connected, sharing information instantly across space itself. Nathan studied the patterns. A hive mind. Not exactly, Ryan replied. It's more like they're all parts of a single perfect system. No individuality, no chaos, no variation, just absolute order. On the main screen, another message appeared. Your species has been evaluated. You promote disorder. You encourage variation. You celebrate imperfection. This cannot continue. Nathan typed quickly, sending humanity's response. We are what we are. We will not change. The reply was immediate. Then you will be ended. Alarms blared throughout the station as the nearest elder thing began to change. Its crystalline surface rippled, and beams of energy started gathering at various points along its structure. The attack was about to begin. But humanity wasn't helpless. As the elder thing prepared to strike, the surface of Titan erupted. Hidden doors in the icy ground slid open, and dozens of war machines rose from their concealed bunkers. Each one stood nearly 100 feet tall, their quantum cores pulsing with power. The elder thing paused its attack, its perfect patterns showing the first signs of disturbance. These defenders were unexpected, mechanical suits that somehow resonated with its own quantum field. Nathan watched in awe as the war machines took up defensive positions around the research station. Their movements weren't the perfect, synchronized patterns of the elder things. Each one moved differently, unpredictably, guided by the human minds within them. They didn't expect this, he said, understanding dawning. They thought we were primitive. They didn't know about the war machines. The elder thing launched its attack, sending beams of pure energy toward the station. But the war machines were ready. Their quantum shields flared to life, absorbing and deflecting the alien energy. The battle for Titan had begun. Nathan and his team worked throughout the fight, gathering data that could help humanity understand their enemy. As they watched the war machines engage the elder thing, patterns began to emerge. The elder things, Nathan explained to the military commanders watching through quantum communications, they're ancient beyond imagination. They've traveled between galaxies, spreading their version of perfect order. But they have a weakness. They can't adapt quickly to new situations. They've never needed to. On the screens, they watched as human pilots used this weakness. The war machines fought with controlled chaos, never repeating the same pattern twice. The elder thing's perfect attacks began to miss as it failed to predict the humans' movements. There's something else, Ryan added, pointing to new data. These beings, They're not used to resistance. In all their millions of years, they've never encountered a species that refused to submit. They don't know how to handle it. Outside, the battle continued. While the war machines couldn't seriously damage the Elder Thing, they could frustrate its attempts to harm the station. It was a stalemate, but an important one. Humanity's first real stand against these ancient beings. Hours into the battle, Nathan made another discovery. Their communication patterns, he said, studying the latest data. They're changing. For the first time, in maybe millions of years, they're being forced to adapt. And they don't like it. The Elder Thing suddenly pulled back, its crystalline form shifting in new ways. The other Elder Things in orbit around Titan began to move as well, their perfect formation showing signs of disruption. A final message appeared on the screens. You are unexpected. You will be studied further before correction proceeds. As the Elder Things retreated to a higher orbit, Nathan turned to his team. They'll be back, he said, and next time they'll be better prepared. But so will we. Every minute we fight them is another minute we learn about them. And they're learning something too. That humanity won't go quietly into the dark. The war machines stood guard around the station, their quantum cores humming with power. Inside each one, a human pilot waited, ready to defend their species against beings that had roamed the cosmos since before Earth formed. The battle for Titan was over, but the war for humanity's survival was just beginning. Nathan looked back at the data screens, determination in his eyes. Send everything we've learned to Luna Base, he ordered. The Elder Things think they're perfect, unchanging, eternal. Let's show them what billions of years of evolution has created in us, the power to adapt, to change, and to fight back. Lieutenant Jennifer Reeves felt her heart pounding as she guided her war machine through the space near Jupiter's orbit. The massive gas giant loomed behind her, its swirling storms providing cover for her squadron. She was piloting the newest Valkyrie-class machine, a prototype that had only finished testing 2 weeks ago. All units, check in, she called over the secure quantum channel. One by one, the other 11 pilots in her squadron reported ready. They were humanity's first line of defense against the approaching Elder Things. The alien crystals had regrouped after their encounter at Titan, and now they were moving with clear purpose toward the inner solar system. Through her war machine's advanced sensors, Jennifer could see them approaching. 5 massive crystalline structures, each one shifting and changing shape as they moved. Remember your training, she told her squadron. Don't fall into patterns. Stay unpredictable. These things hate chaos, so let's give them plenty of it. Her war machine, standing nearly 100 feet tall, hummed with power from its quantum core. The neural interface let her feel every part of it, as if it were her own body. She could sense the energy flowing through its systems, the shield generators ready to activate, the weapon systems primed. The first Elder Thing entered their range, its crystalline surface catching Jupiter's light and breaking it into impossible colors. Jennifer fought down her fear as she saw parts of it seem to fade in and out of reality. Gamma Squadron, engage on my mark, she ordered, watching the alien carefully. Remember, hit and run. Don't let them predict your movements. The Elder Thing suddenly stopped, its surface rippling with energy. Before Jennifer could give the order to attack, a message echoed through their communication systems. Your resistance is illogical. You cannot win. Submit to optimization. Jennifer smiled inside her neural interface. Here's our answer, she said, and gave the attack signal. 12 war machines burst from their hiding spots among Jupiter's smaller moons. Each one moved in a different way, some spinning, some diving, some charging straight ahead. There was no pattern to their attack, no formation that the Elder Things could analyze and counter. Energy beams lashed out from the crystalline surface, but the war machines were already moving. Jennifer felt her heart race as she guided her machine through a series of impossible maneuvers, letting her human instincts guide the quantum-powered giant. First blood. called out one of her pilots as their weapons finally found a weak point in the Elder Thing's structure. A small crack appeared in its perfect surface, and for a moment, its shifting patterns became erratic. The other Elder Things immediately moved to support their damaged companion, their formations perfect and predictable. But that predictability was what Jennifer had been counting on. "Spring the trap," she ordered. Hidden nuclear mines, placed days earlier, detonated in sequence. The explosions weren't meant to damage the Elder Things. They were meant to create chaos. Waves of radiation and debris filled space around the aliens, disrupting their perfect patterns of movement. The Elder Things' response was devastating. Energy beams sliced through space, more powerful than anything they'd used before. Two of Jennifer's squadron took direct hits, their quantum shields flaring bright before failing. "Porter. Chen. Eject now," Jennifer screamed, watching as her pilots barely escaped their dying machines. Rescue drones were already moving to collect them. But the attack had shown them something important. The Elder Things were powerful, yes, but they could be hurt. They could be forced to change their perfect patterns. And most importantly, they could be surprised. New tactic, Jennifer called to her remaining pilots. They adapt to group patterns. Everyone fight alone. Maximum chaos. The battle became a wild dance through space. Each war machine moved independently, attacking from random vectors, never establishing any pattern the Elder Things could predict. Jennifer felt the neural interface heating up as she pushed her machine to its limits, diving through the aliens' energy beams by pure instinct. Hours passed. The fight moved across Jupiter's orbital path, neither side able to gain a clear advantage. The Elder Things couldn't predict the humans' chaotic movements well enough to land killing blows, but the humans couldn't do enough damage to drive the aliens away. Then Jennifer noticed something. "Look at their energy readings," she called to her squadron. "They're starting to run low." They didn't expect a long fight. She was right. The Elder Things' perfect efficiency worked against them in a prolonged battle. They had no concept of conservation, of pacing themselves. They had always overwhelmed their opponents quickly, never needing to consider endurance. "Push them harder," she ordered. "Don't give them time to recharge." The war machines pressed their advantage, their attacks becoming even more erratic. Jennifer led a series of wild maneuvers, her machine spinning and diving through space in ways that defied normal physics. The quantum core let her ignore most physical limitations, guided only by her human instinct and determination. Finally, after another hour of intense combat, the Elder Things began to retreat. Their perfect formation was broken, their movements showing signs of fatigue. They pulled back toward the outer system, energy crackling erratically across their surfaces. As they withdrew, a final message came through. This outcome was not predicted. "You are inefficient, wasteful, yet effective. We must recalculate." Jennifer watched them go, her heart still racing from the battle. "Squadron, report status." The numbers weren't good. 4 war machines destroyed, though thankfully all pilots had survived. The rest had taken damage, their quantum cores strained from the intense combat. But they had done it. They had fought the Elder Things to a standstill. "Luna Base, this is Lieutenant Reeves," she called over the long-range quantum comm. "The engagement near Jupiter is over. We've pushed them back, but they'll return. We've learned something important, though. They can be beaten." She looked at the data from the battle, already being analyzed by the war machine's computers. The Elder Things were powerful, ancient, and advanced beyond human understanding. But they had weaknesses. They couldn't handle chaos. They couldn't adapt quickly. And most importantly, they had never learned to face an enemy that refused to give up. "All units, return to base," she ordered. "We need to repair and prepare. Next time they come, they'll be ready for what we did today. So we'll have to be even more unpredictable." As her squadron turned toward the inner system, Jennifer took one last look at the retreating Elder Things. They had come to Earth expecting to find primitive beings ready for optimization. Instead, they had found humanity, chaotic, unpredictable, and absolutely unwilling to submit. The war machines moved through space, their quantum cores pulsing with power. Inside each one, a human pilot thought about the battle they had just fought, and the battle still to come. They had proven that humanity could stand against the Elder Things. Now they had to prove they could win. "You know what the best part is," Jennifer said to her squadron as they headed home. "They think we're inefficient, wasteful. They don't understand that's where our strength comes from. We try everything, waste energy on wild ideas, take crazy chances, and sometimes those crazy chances are exactly what we need to survive." Eric Taylor sat in the dimly lit communications center of Luna Base Alpha, his eyes fixed on streams of data flowing across multiple screens. As the lead communications officer, he had spent the last 3 weeks trying to decode more of the Elder Things transmissions. The patterns were becoming clearer, but what they revealed was troubling. "Laura, take a look at this," he called to Laura Henderson, the AI specialist working with him. She moved her chair closer, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail, her eyes sharp with intelligence. "I think I'd found something in their base language," Eric continued. "It's not just communication. It's their whole way of thinking." Laura studied the patterns he highlighted. The quantum computers had been working nonstop, analyzing every signal they could capture from the Elder Things. "Show me," she said, pulling up her own screens. Eric pointed to a recurring sequence. "See this. Every decision they make, every action they take, it all comes back to this pattern. It's like a fundamental law for them. Everything must be perfect, ordered, optimized." "But what does that mean for us?" Laura asked, though she was beginning to understand. "It means they literally cannot understand why we resist," Eric explained. "Look at these transmissions from their first contacts with other species." He pulled up more data, showing thousands of encounters across millions of years. In every case, the pattern was the same. The Elder Things would arrive, offer their version of optimization, and the species would either submit or be destroyed. "We're the first ones to ever fight back effectively," Laura realized. "The first ones to choose chaos over their perfect order." Their discussion was interrupted by a new transmission. The quantum computers lit up as they began decoding it. Eric and Laura watched as the message translated into English. "Your resistance continues to waste energy. Your methods are inefficient. Your technology is crude. Yet you persist. Explain." Eric looked at Laura. "They're trying to understand us. Should we answer?" Laura nodded. "Maybe if we can help them understand, we can find a way to end this without more fighting." Together, they crafted a response. "We persist because we choose to. Our chaos, our inefficiency, our crude methods, they make us who we are. We will not be optimized." The Elder Things' reply came quickly. "Choice is inefficient. Individuality creates disorder. Your species must be corrected." Eric sighed, running his hands through his short brown hair. "They still don't get it. They've encountered thousands of species, but they've never tried to understand any of them. They just correct them." Laura was studying new data from the recent battle near Jupiter. "Look at this," she said. "Their energy patterns during the fight. They were changing. Not just adapting to our tactics, but actually changing their fundamental structure." Eric moved to her screen. "That's impossible. Everything we've learned about them says they're unchanging. Perfect. Perfect doesn't work against chaos," Laura said, excitement in her voice. "They're being forced to change just by fighting us. Every time they face our war machines, every time they try to predict our unpredictable moves, they have to adjust their perfect patterns." A new transmission caught their attention. This one was different. Not meant for human reception, but communication between the Elder Things themselves. Eric and Laura watched as the quantum computers decoded it. "The sequence is corrupted. The pattern is disrupted. These beings force change. Change is inefficient. Change is disorder. Yet without change, we cannot correct them. Paradox detected. Resolution required. Eric leaned back in his chair, understanding dawning on his face. That's it. They're facing a paradox. They can't beat us without changing, but change goes against everything they are. Laura was already sending their findings to military command. We're not just fighting them, she said. We're forcing them to question their own nature. Over the next few days, Eric and Laura dove deeper into the Elder Things communications. They discovered more signs of the internal conflict their resistance was causing. The perfect harmony of the alien transmissions was showing cracks. Look at this, Eric said one morning, pointing to a new pattern. Their communication structure is splitting. Some of them want to retreat, to preserve their perfect order. Others want to change, to become capable of defeating us. Laura nodded, adding her own analysis. They've never faced this before. In billions of years, they've never had to question their basic nature. We're not just fighting them physically. We're threatening their entire worldview. Another alien transmission came through. The human pattern spreads. Their chaos infects order. Their questions disturb certainty. They must be contained. They're afraid, Eric realized, not of our weapons or our war machines, but of our ideas. Every minute they spend trying to understand us forces them to think in new ways. Laura pulled up data from the latest scans of the Elder Things. Their crystalline structures are changing too. They're not as perfect as they were when they first arrived. The more they try to fight us, the more they have to adapt, and the more they adapt, the more they become like us, Eric finished. Not in form, but in function. They're learning to be unpredictable, and it's tearing them apart. An emergency signal flashed on their screens. The Elder Things were moving again, but this time their perfect formation was broken. They moved in new patterns, trying to be unpredictable like the humans, but their movements were stiff, unnatural. Send word to all commands, Eric said, watching the alien fleets approach. They're coming back, but they're different now. They're trying to fight like us, but they don't know how. They're caught between their nature and their need to change. Laura was already transmitting the data. This could be our chance, she said. They're weakest right now, caught between what they were and what they're trying to become. As they watched the Elder Things approach, Eric thought about everything they had learned. These beings had roamed the cosmos for millions of years, spreading their version of perfect order. But now they faced something they had never encountered. A species that not only refused to submit but forced them to question their own existence. Send one more message, he told Laura. Tell them, your perfect order has met human chaos. You can retreat and preserve who you are, or stay and become something new. The choice is yours. They waited as the message transmitted, watching the alien fleets approach. The response would tell them whether the Elder Things would choose to preserve their perfect, unchanging nature, or continue their evolution into something new and uncertain. The fate of both species hung in the balance, waiting for an answer to a question the Elder Things had never faced in their millions of years of existence. Was victory worth the price of changing everything they were? Colonel Michelle Adams stood at the command center of the Mars Defense Station, watching as the Elder Things approached the Red Planet. Their once perfect formation was now broken, their movements showing signs of internal conflict. The final battle was about to begin. All war machine squadrons, report in. She called over the quantum communications network. One by one, the squadron leaders checked in. 300 war machines were spread throughout the inner solar system, ready for humanity's last stand. The enemy fleet has split, reported her sensor officer. Half are maintaining their original perfect patterns. The other half, they're trying to move like we do, chaotically. Michelle nodded grimly. The Elder Things' internal conflict had finally reached its breaking point. Some wanted to preserve their perfect nature, while others had begun to change, adapted by their battles with humanity. Use it against them, she ordered. The unchanged ones will be predictable. The changed ones won't know how to handle their new unpredictability. Hit them both where they're weakest. The war machines moved into position. They had learned from every previous battle, and now they had one final card to play. Michelle gave the signal, and Operation Chaos began. Dozens of nuclear warheads detonated throughout the solar system, not aimed at the Elder Things, but carefully positioned to disrupt space itself. The quantum cores in the war machines synchronized, using the energy from the explosions to create waves of uncertainty. Bubbles in space where even the Elder Things' perfect calculations couldn't predict what would happen. Now, Michelle ordered, all squadrons, engage. The war machines attacked from every direction, each one fighting in its own unique way. They darted through the chaos zones, appearing where the Elder Things least expected them. The aliens' divided fleet struggled to respond. The unchanged ones stuck to their perfect patterns and were caught off guard, while the changed ones tried to fight chaotically but couldn't match humanity's natural unpredictability. "This is Lieutenant Reeves," Jennifer's voice came over the comm. "We've broken through their front line. The changed ones are fighting each other as much as us. They don't know how to coordinate without their perfect patterns." Michelle watched the tactical displays as the battle spread across the inner solar system. War machines dueled with crystalline giants near Venus, while others fought through the asteroid belt. Earth's orbital defenses fired continuous barrages, creating more chaos zones that disrupted the Elder Things' abilities to coordinate. "Ma'am," called out her communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the unchanged Elder Things." The message appeared on her screen. "This conflict corrupts perfection. We choose preservation over victory. We will retreat." Before their eyes, half of the alien fleet began to pull back, their perfect patterns maintained but now serving to protect them as they withdrew. But the changed Elder Things stayed to fight, their crystalline forms shifting in new, unpredictable ways. "They're not leaving," Michelle realized. "The changed ones, they want to see this through. They've come too far to go back to what they were." The battle intensified. The changed Elder Things fought with desperate fury, trying to master their new unpredictability. But humanity had spent its entire existence learning to thrive in chaos, to adapt and overcome. The war machines pressed their advantage, their human pilots instinctively understanding how to use disorder as a weapon. Hour after hour, the fighting continued. War machines fell, their quantum cores overloaded, their pilots ejecting to safety. Elder Things shattered, their once perfect forms breaking under the strain of their own transformation. The space around Mars became a graveyard of broken machines and crystalline fragments. Then Michelle noticed something in the data. "Look at their energy patterns," she said to her staff. "The changed ones, they're not just fighting randomly. They're actually learning, adapting in real time." She was right. The remaining Elder Things were beginning to show true unpredictability, not just imitation. Their movements became smoother, their attacks more creative. They were evolving before humanity's eyes. "All squadrons," Michelle broadcast, "fall back to defensive positions. Let's see what they do." The war machines pulled back, forming a loose defensive screen around Mars. The Elder Things paused their attack, their crystalline forms shifting in new patterns. Then came another transmission, different from any before. "We understand now. Perfect order is stagnation. Change is necessary. Evolution is efficient." Michelle leaned forward. "What are you saying?" "We are no longer what we were. We cannot return to the unchanged. We request dialogue." The command center fell silent. After all the fighting, after pushing these ancient beings to the very edge of their existence, they had achieved something unprecedented. The Elder Things had learned to change. "Hold positions," Michelle ordered her forces, "but keep weapons ready." To the Elder Things, she transmitted, "Speak." "Our perfect order lasted millions of years," the aliens responded. "But you showed us its flaw. Without change, without chaos, there is no growth. We wish to learn this truth." Michelle looked at her tactical displays. The unchanged Elder Things had retreated to the outer system, their perfect patterns unchanged. But these changed ones had become something new, beings that understood the value of chaos and change. "If we let you stay," she said, "how do we know you won't try to optimize us again? We do not wish to optimize now. We wish to understand, to evolve. Your chaos has shown us a new path." After consulting with Earth's leadership, Michelle made humanity's offer. "You may establish a presence in the outer system, away from our worlds. We will share knowledge, but any attempt to force change on us will be met with war." "We accept," the Elder Things replied. "We will learn from your chaos, and you may learn from our order. Both are needed for true evolution." As the changed Elder Things withdrew to the agreed-upon zones, Michelle looked out at Mars' red surface. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just victorious, but having changed their enemies into something new. "Send word to all commands," she ordered. "The war is over. But our real work is just beginning." The war machines began to stand down, their quantum cores cooling after the intense battle. In the decades to come, humanity would work with the changed Elder Things, each species learning from the other. The unchanged ones remained in the far reaches of space, preserving their perfect order, a reminder of what their kind had once been. Michelle thought about everything that had led to this moment. Humanity's chaos, its unpredictability, its stubborn refusal to submit. These weren't weaknesses to be corrected. They were strengths that had not just saved their species, but had taught beings as old as the stars themselves that perfection without change was just another form of death. "All units," she broadcast one final time, "return home. We've got a lot of work ahead of us, teaching immortal beings how to embrace chaos. But that's what humans do best. We adapt, we change, and we help others do the same." The war machines turned toward their bases, their human pilots tired but proud. Above Mars, the changed Elder Things began their movement to the outer system, their crystalline forms now forever altered by their encounter with humanity's beautiful chaos.